Hello and welcome along to today's video. Today we're going to be looking at ignition systems on a 100cc kart engine. Where do we set them? What do we need to know about them? What the difference is. Over here we've got a Parilla TT75. This engine is fitted with a PVL ignition system. On the other side we have another Parilla TT75. This one is fitted with a Motoplat system. The Motoplat system is a slightly older system. It's more difficult to get hold of. It's no longer manufactured. So we're going to start off. We need to fit the two ignition systems onto their respective engines. So we'll do that straight away. The rotors are already fitted, already tight. So to get the stator, we'll pop it over the top, making sure not to trap the wires. There's a small recess that the wire sits into. When you get it in the correct place, that will pop onto its register. There's 3 slotted holes, 1, 2, 3, attached by M5 bolts. So we'll put those in. And now we'll put the PVL stator on. Again, it's held on with M5 bolts, fitted in exactly the same way as on the Motoplat. So make sure the wire doesn't get trapped as it clicks onto the register. Rotate it just enough that the bolts will line up, and then we'll put the bolts through. The difference in the bolts here is, for the PVL you need 2 different lengths of bolts. 2 bolts are slightly longer than the third. On the Motoplat, all 3 bolts are the same length. Now with both of these systems, we've put the bolts in, but we've not tightened them. We've left them loose so that we can rotate the stator slightly, because that is how you adjust the ignition timing. The other tool that is needed to do the ignition timing is a dial gauge. It's already fitted in this engine. We'll show you that being put into another engine later. So how do you use the dial gauge? As you rotate the crank assembly, the piston will move up and you'll see the gauge starts to move up. The dial indicates the measurement. So when we get to top dead center, or TDC, you'll notice the dial will get to a point and then it will start to move back. So when we get it to where it stops, we adjust the dial to 0, and then the dial is set to top dead center. If we look down here on the rotor, we'll see there is a timing mark, and on the stator we'll see there is another timing mark. Now we're measuring ignition timing in millimeters before top dead center. So if we rotate the engine, so we're at top dead center here, we know because the gauge is at 0. As we rotate, we're coming up towards the timing marks. We've gone around 1 millimeter, which is 1 full rotation of the gauge. Coming round, that's at 2 millimeters. Now we're looking for this mark and this mark to be lined up. So initially, we're gonna just line the mark up and see where the gauge is at. So that's lined up there. Now we've gone 2 full turns plus 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6. Now that is more ignition than we want. For this engine with this PVL setup, we're going to be aiming for 2.1 millimeters of ignition advance. So we're going to have to rotate the stator round until we're lined up. Now to do that, we'll go all the way back to top dead center. We'll go 1 rotation, 2 rotations of the dial to here. So this is now set at 2.1. We then rotate the stator until the 2 marks line up, and then we'll tighten the bolts. So now we have the 3 bolts tightened, not super tight, but just nipped for now. We will again rotate the crankshaft till we're at top dead center, and then we'll measure again to make sure nothing's moved. So 1mm, 2mm, 2.1 there, and the 2 marks are lining up here. So now that's the ignition timing set on this engine. We'll pop the bolts out one at a time, fit them with some Loctite 222. So now we've got the 3 bolts good and tight with the Loctite on, we'll once again check the ignition timing. So back to top dead center on the gauge. This time I'm just going to count as the rotations and line up the marks. So yep, we're 2.1mm of ignition advance on this engine. So we're happy with how that's set. So now we'll take the gauge out and we'll move across to the Motoplat system. There are some small differences between the 2 ignition systems. They do have slightly different ignition curves, so you have to set your timing slightly differently between the 2 to achieve the same result. So we'll start off by removing the dial gauge from this engine. Just threads into the spark plug hole. See. We've set the ignition timing across the 2 engines. The measurement we've set the timing to is slightly different between the 2 systems. The reason for this is because the systems have slightly different advanced characteristics. The markings on the rotor are not exactly the same position relative to the crankshaft. What are the differences between the 2 systems? The rotors are different between the systems, the stators are different between the systems, and the coils are different between the 2 systems. These systems are completely interchangeable on the engine, however they must be done as a complete set. So the rotor and the stator cannot be interchanged with the rotor and stator from the other system, and the coils cannot be interchanged between the systems. So if you have a Motoplat system, you must use the Motoplat rotor, the Motoplat stator, and the Motoplat coil. You can't interchange those with the PVL parts, and the same with the PVL parts, you can't interchange with the Motoplat parts. So what are the differences on track between the 2 systems? Essentially nothing. You can get exactly the same lap time and engine performance out of both systems. The only noticeable difference can be the RPM at which each system will start to create a spark. The Motoplat system will start creating a spark at a slightly lower RPM than the PVL system will, but we're only talking about a few hundred RPM difference here. When you're bump starting your kart, you're pushing at a much higher speed than this RPM anyway.